That is a Tour Balata golf ball. We're going to do a couple more tests with this because we've done it with the driver, which you might have already seen. Maybe we'll put a link up in this corner or whatever corner it appears in. The debate with rolling balls back is like massive. People are really talking about it. I'm going to do a few more tests with this ball that might suggest that actually if you went back to something like a Balata ball, you might find that your tour players actually get a bit better. And possibly would just adapt. So this drive, which was pretty average, has hit the fairway. The modern ball would have definitely caught the rough. I reckon it would have shaped a little bit more to the right because it was in the air for longer, and it would have definitely, on the angle of this hole, gone into the rough. Now from 165 out, I'm going to hit a 7-iron. Might not reach, but if the land angle and spin rate with this ball are different to the modern ball, this part of the game to me feels like I'm going to actually possibly have a bit more control. So there's a good argument, which we're going to test, that possibly I could be better with this ball if the courses were adjusted for size evenly for both modern and old ball. So I'm going to start with my 52 wedge. We're going to hit Balata, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Balata and then a Srixon, then a Balata with a Srixon. I'm going to go through some stages in my bag. So I'm going to start with 52, then I'm going to hit an 8-iron, then I'm going to hit my driver, and we'll show you the difference and what this means. But I'm going to try and not get any pattern with each ball, so I'm going to alternate shots between balls and then show you the data at the end. This could be fun. Now on, oh there we go. That is, yeah, prizes for everyone. So again, we're going to flick between balls to try and keep the continuity of shots as even as possible. Oh, it's an arrow. Go on. Go on. Oh, I pitched it almost. Right, driver to finish, and I've got a little curveball with the driver to show you as well. So let's take a look at the numbers, and it's really interesting what we can learn from these numbers. There's so much we can take. So if we start with the wedge, what's interesting with the wedge is how similar the two balls are. So the Z-Star here in turquoise and the reds is the Balata ball, carrying it very similar distances. Obviously I'm trying to hit a certain distance. Descent angle is almost identical, so they're coming down at the same angle. And then here's the big jump. Look at the spin with the Balata ball, over 10,500 revs average, where the Srixon's around 9.5. So we see a massive jump in spin, similar descents. I was able to hit the right distance. So in theory, that's giving me more control. The kind of stuff that manufacturers are selling into all the time with wedges, more spin and more controlled spin with balls, high spinning in your wedges and all those kind of things. It's there with this ball. So if we now jump to the 8-iron, you can see the ball speeds are very similar, a little bit more out of the Z-Star, just a tiny bit more. And now we see a parting in the carry. So 8-iron going 147 kind of average yards compared to 142-ish with the Balata. So I'm dropping down in yardage, which you would expect. The Balata ball was a shorter ball. But look at the ball speeds. The ball speeds are very, very close. It's like 2 mile an hour, 1 mile an hour average in those two ball speeds. So again, it's the 8-iron spin. 9,000 revs near up by, and now 7,000 revs. And we're now jumping 2,000 revs in spin, which is losing me that distance. But the ball speed's there, so I'm seeing a potential if the ball speed is there, which we'll come to. Now if we look at the hybrid, really interesting, the ball speed is now quicker with the Balata ball. It's faster, over 130 to just below 130 ball speed with my hybrid from the Balata to the modern ball. So the potential, if that ball speed is there, if you've got enough knowledge and the right coaching, there's potential to squeeze more out of this ball possibly. If we look at the peak heights of the hybrids, again, very similar. The Z-Star going a fraction higher. And then the descent angle with the hybrid, look how much more of a descent angle. We're getting good 2 degrees more descent angle out of the hybrid. So in theory, I imagine we're getting different spins as well. Again, if we look at the spin, it's over 6,000 revs with the hybrid, where it's 4,000 revs with the modern ball. So the ball speeds are the same. The descent angle's better with the Balata ball. So that means it's coming down a little steeper with a bit more spin. So on those longer approach shots, I, in theory, are going to have more control with that hybrid over a modern ball. So again, in theory, if the courses are adjusted to the sizing like they've done over the years, they've got longer, that hybrid's going to actually be easier for me to hit and hold greens than the modern ball. Not harder, it's going to be easier. But again, we see the carry drop because of that spin. So my hybrid with the Z-Star going up near 200 yards, where now it's 185. It's 15 yards difference in distance, which again is why you can see the courses have had to adjust, had to change for the modern ball. So let's look at the driver. The big one. Ball speeds, again, very similar. If anything, slightly quicker out of the Balata, which I think lots of people might find quite amazing. But so again, the potential's there. And then if we look at the carry, it drops down just below 250 yards carry, just over 270 with the modern ball. So it's 20 yards further in the air. So you're looking over two long shots. You're kind of 30 to 50 yards extra distance. So you can see where the game's gone. I mean, that just by changing that ball over 2 full shots, I'm gaining massive amounts of distance, which obviously if the courses stay the same, it's going to become easier with the modern ball. But if the courses are adjusted accordingly, I don't think it does get easier. I think it's very much the same. But obviously with the, if you went to kind of Balata ball era, you would have more options to make the course longer in theory, because, you know, you've already got max courses now that they're going to struggle to hit. Or will they? Because after I hit these shots, what was really interesting is this number here. So this is the driver spin, near 4,000, 3,500 down to near 2,000. So it's 1,500 difference with the driver. What was so interesting with these numbers is it was the common theme is the spin, how it changes. Very similar down at that bottom end, and it just keeps parting and parting and parting and parting. Now, what was really interesting with the ball speeds being very similar, my coaching brain kicked in. Now this is the big lesson for you guys and girls trying to gain yardage, and the big lesson, you could argue that the coaches of the time, and definitely the tour pros of the time, who are now all the commentators, who definitely frustrate me. I mean, post comments down below, do the commentators frustrate you or not? They're so stuck in their old-fashioned ways sometimes, it feels. The majority, there's some good ones, but the majority, it's very hard to listen to them reminisce about their day when they actually try to underplay the modern skill a little bit. And the ball is often like the weapon they use. We use this ball and it spun more when offline, which we've done tests. It doesn't. It spins more, but that doesn't mean it goes more offline. But I cheated this ball. So just think if your Faldos and players of the era asked the correct questions rather than maybe the ones about swing plane and those kind of ideas. Because watch what happened. We've got the Balata Plus ball on here now, which is just the Balata ball. But what it is it's me using my aerodynamic knowledge. It's me using my coaching knowledge. It's me using my delivery knowledge. And this is something I used to do with students over and over and over again, gaining them, on average, I would say between 7 and 25 yards, basically, between those two figures for students when I was coaching full time. They would talk shafts and clubs, and it was all fun and exciting, but you would see gains of 2-3 yards, which were arguably not gains, because unless you hit enough balls, it was hard to see that they were gains. In a lesson with modern day knowledge built through launch monitors and modern day learning using not golf pros nor scientists, look what I was able to do to the carry of that Balata ball. I was able to move it 15 or so yards on and get it very close to the modern ball. And what I did is I got a 7-degree driver. So I got an 8 degree and brought it down a degree. And then I changed my normal angle of attack, which is about 2 up, into 5 to 7 up. And literally within 3 or 4 shots, I was able to get it to pretty much the same as the modern ball. So that wasn't, it was a little bit of clubs, a little bit of knowledge of clubs, built around dynamic lofts delivered and spin lofts. Because what I was able to do, if you look at the spin, is I was able to cascade it down. Not as close as the Z-Star, because I wasn't able to get my hands on a 5-degree driver at the time. Literally, if I was able to get myself a 5-degree driver, the green ones here, the Balata Pluses, would have spun the same as the modern ball. And then in turn, we know the ball speeds can be the same, would have gone as far as a modern ball. So where I feel frustrated as a golfer and a coach. So I'm not having a go at anybody here. Those commentators and those coaches who were asking the wrong questions, definitely asking the wrong questions at the time, and they would admit they were asking the wrong questions, didn't know any better. There was no other ways of them, well, there were ways of them finding this out, because obviously this ball was developed and companies were developing balls to cheat this so the student didn't have to do it. But if they thought a bit more out of the box then, like I think golf tuition and the golf will do now, I could literally, as an amateur golfer, when I was competing at my most, if you look at the carries, I would have been able to go in the next day. I would have been able to play with my mates one day or in a tournament one day and go in the next day and hit it 15 yards further through the air with a driver, and people would have gone, what have you done there? And this makes me think of people like Bryson now, who are challenging these questions and get absolutely hounded by people because they don't like his personality. What he is actually doing is asking some very, very clever questions which will affect how golf moves forward. If you gave me the exact equipment I needed, I would have got the modern day ball competing, or the Balata ball competing with the modern day ball. Absolutely, definitely would have. And if you think about your 8 irons and my hybrids, I mean, my 8 iron, I'm hitting 4 down. So I could take 3 degrees of that down out, change the loft of that club delivered, and be able to get the same numbers. I've got numbers in the bank to be able to move them. I don't need to be 4 down with my 8 iron. That's just subject to the ball we're using now. I could change that to get those spin numbers down, to get them very close. So I honestly believe if they tried to roll any balls back to Balata area, which I don't think they would, because obviously they know this. The R&A and USGA know all this information, which is why they're not changing anything, because they know they're a little bit kind of shackled at the moment. It's not as simple as people think. It absolutely is not. Because whatever you do to that ball, unless you stop ball speeds, the players will be able to nowadays work out how to get it back to where they need it. They'll move their swings, they'll develop their movements. They're not ingrained in the players. They can use different deliveries and still be very functional. And the reason I think golf has moved on and distances is moving on, yes, the golf ball helps you do it without the aid of a coach, but now everyone's been using the same golf ball for many, many years. Golf coaches, golf science, golf knowledge has improved so much that it's made a massive difference to making the players understand what they need to do to keep up with other players. Think about it as well. Jack Nicklaus, obviously very famous for being arguably the best player who's ever lived if you use your major counts. He was probably hitting, without knowing his measurements, a good way up with plenty of speed. So he was physically fit doing what Bryson's done. That was just his way. He was a physically athletic person comparing to someone of a different stature in their body of his era. He also had very good delivery control and was probably able to get the most out of the ball, and if not, maybe more. Post comments down below. Let me know what you think. The biggest thing for me for this shows the potential for any golfer out there to improve with some really good delivery knowledge. And I think it's fun looking at new clubs. I think it's fun talking about shafts if you're that kind of person and all those kind of ways. But the evidence just constantly shows that if you can improve and manipulate your delivery, which a golf club will do to fine degrees, but I was able to change my angle of attack by, say, 3 degrees without moving my dynamic loft. So in turn, I was kind of a total of moving my delivery by about 4 to 7 degrees. I was able to squeeze a lot more out of a ball that was trying to shackle me back. You can all get it much further. The answers are in you. You just might need a coach to get them out of you. The trouble is, you'll go to your companies and your fitters. I know this won't be popular, but fitting studios don't work if they don't sell you product. That's the business model. It just doesn't work. Where a coach doesn't have to sell you anything. A coach can just help you play better golf. Post comments. Let me know what you think. As always, thanks for watching. It was a very fun test. And I'm gutted. I was leaving 15, 20 yards on the table just by not being clever enough when I was an amateur and working on what I was being told to work on at the time, which was very position based. We all got it a bit wrong, didn't we?